ओ ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। ॐ समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुत्सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। ॐ श्री गणेशाय नमः। ॐ श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। Wish everybody a very happy Independence Day. On this day, we should humbly acknowledge our gratitude to all the freedom fighters who sacrificed and gave their life for the freedom of our country. So we are meeting today after a 2-month break, and we had started the chapter 12, the Bhakti Yoga, before the summer break, and we have done 8 shlokas. So what I will do is I will summarize those 8 shlokas, and then, shloka number 9. So we'll start with the summary of the first 8 shlokas. So the 12th chapter, which is called Bhakti Yoga, starts with Arjuna's question, Evam satata yuktaye bhaktas-tvam pariyupasate echap yaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. So he says, Bhagavan, I have heard that there are 2 kinds of devotees, those who worship you with form and then those who worship you as the formless. So who is the greater devotee? Who is better in your opinion? Please tell me that. So Bhagavan directly does not answer the question, but his way of indicating is that both are good. It is a stepwise sequence. So first he says, Maya Veshya Manoye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayo Petaha Teme Yukta Tamamataha. So he says, one who puts his mind in me or her mind in me, always connected with me, with total Shraddha, total faith in me and in the scriptures and in the Guru, such a person is superior. So it doesn't matter form or formless, but that is the requirement. But then he describes the qualities of the formless Brahman. which cannot be described, but Bhagwan in his words, he gives some idea to us. Ye tvaksharama nirdeshyam avyaktam paryupasate sarvatra gamachintyancha kutastham achalam dhruvam. So he says this formless Brahman is aksharam, indestructible, anirdeshyam, cannot be pointed out, avyaktam is unmanifest, but pariupasate, you have to worship him with all your effort, all your thinking. And who is this Brahman? Sarvatragam, is all pervading everywhere. Achintyam, cannot be thought of. It is kutas, achalam, dhruvam, it is fixed. It cannot be moved and move anywhere because he is everywhere. This Brahman is everywhere. So the one that cannot be described, cannot be pointed out, cannot be thought of, how am I to know that? Or how am I to connect with that? So Bhagwan give us some pointers in the next verse. He says, Sam niyamye indriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhaya te prapnuvanti mameva sarva bhuta hite rataha. So he says, to meditate, you have to control your senses and remain equanimous in all situations, because life will give us problems. I think it came out by mistake. I didn't mean to say that. Life will give us problems, but one has to remain balanced, remain equanimous in all situations. And sarva bhuta hite rataha. And such an individual is always engaged in the welfare of all. It doesn't matter, not only my family, my community, my nation, but all beings everywhere. That is how you become one with the totality, and then slowly you can connect with the unmanifest. But Bhagavan Shri Krishna also says, klesho adhik taras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyaktahi gatir dukkham deha vadbhira vapyate. He says, if you think you are this body and I am limited to this body, then for you, when I am only this body, this world is real, my house is real, everything is very solid for you, and my body is solid, it's real. There is nothing except this world, or kuch hai nahi. Then for such an individual who has a strong body identification, Bhagavan says, to worship the formless will be klesha, will be difficult. Adhiktara klesha means it is more difficult than worshipping the form. So the idea is that in the beginning, we all are identified with our body. We give a lot of reality to the body and to this Jagat. So he says, worship God with form, whichever form you love, whether you love Sri Krishna or Sri Rama or Mother Durga, whoever, Balaji, doesn't matter, whichever form of God, Jesus, whichever form of God you think is closest, that is called Ishta Devta, worship that form, but do not limit God only to that form, extend it to all forms of God. If Sri Krishna is God, also is Lord Shiva, also is Allah, also is Jesus, also is Buddha. So all forms of God, and ultimately extended to all forms, everybody, all humans, birds, plants, animals, fish, animate, inanimate. That's why Bhagavan says chara and achara. The moving and the unmoving, all are me. And that is what he had shown us in the 11th chapter. Then Bhagavan says, he says that those who put their mind and intellect in me, ye tu sarva, I put all your activities in me, and upasate, and worship me. Tesha maham samudharta, then a person who does all the activities dedicated to me, ye tu sarvani karmani, mai samyasya mat paraha, ananye neva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate. So one who worships me and does all activities devoted to me, dedicates everything to me, surrenders everything to me, considers me the highest goal. Here, when Bhagavan says me, does not mean only Sri Krishna, but any form, because he identifies with the totality. When Bhagavan in Bhagavad Gita says me, it does not mean only as me as Sri Krishna, but me as the Brahman, as the cosmic totality, which he showed us in the 11th chapter. So he says, one who worships me like that, upasate teshamaham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha maya veshit chetasam. So he says, those who do all actions dedicated to me at all times and surrender everything to me. Sannyas means have no ownership. Nothing belongs to me. Everything belongs to God, and God is my highest goal. Then he says, I lift them out of this ocean of samsara, because they say that this world is so difficult to cross. This ocean of samsara is so difficult that by my own effort, the jiva cannot do it, but the jiva needs help of God. So God says, I will help you. Now, this word upasana is often misunderstood, and people think, what is the meaning of upasate? Upasana means exactly what? Does it mean only going to the temple and doing puja, or doing puja in your puja room, chanting the name of the Lord? So they say that is very good, remembering God, going to the temple, chanting, but do not limit upasana to that. Upasana means to sit close to God, which means at all times, my mind is close to God, is connected with God. How should this upasana be done? How can I bring every action dedicated to God? It's very difficult. I am so busy. I have so much to do. So the example they give is called Anga and Angi. So part and the whole. So to give an example, now I am here and say some part of my hand is hurting, right? There is some pain and I have to put some ointment, or there is some itching. So now this left hand is hurting. So my right finger, I tell it, okay, put some ointment here, the pain medicine or something for the itching. Now the finger doesn't say, why should I do it? It's not my job. Tell the other finger to do it. Does the finger ever say that? Or the hand is not mine, it's your hand, you take care. I'll take care of the body, but not this hand. I don't know who this hand is, where it came from. No. Instantly the finger goes wherever it hurts. There is something in my eye. The finger doesn't say, tell the other eye to remove it. No, finger will instantly remove it. But you and I, we don't think of the totality. See, if somebody says, okay, go and clean Bhagwan's temple, we'll say, okay, I'll do that. But then they'll say, go and there is some dirt in some bad neighborhood. And, today we are doing a cleaning project. Let's all go and clean. Why should I clean? What have they done for me? Immediately the difference comes. Are usne mere liye, I did so much for this person. A person didn't do anything. Or we tell Bhagwan, Bhagwan, look how much service I do. And what do I get? Nothing. I still have my same problems. I still have my same. So when it comes to the world, we immediately distinguish, he is mine. But in the 11th chapter, Bhagavan said, they are all me. So just as one finger has no problem serving another finger and doesn't say, oh, I have done so much for this finger never helped me back. So same way, a wise Mahatma, in their eyes, we are all Bhagavan's manifestation. But our problem is that if there's some work has been given to me by Bhagavan, okay, you are in charge of service. We are ready to serve Bhagavan, but not other individuals. Or a Mahatma, or a Mahatma has started a project and has appointed somebody. We say, why should I help him? No. So this I and my is very strong because we don't have this concept of Ang and Angi, that I am a part of the whole. I am not separate, just as finger is not separate from the eye from the other hand. Similarly, I am not separate. And that factor one has to remember constantly, that they are all me. They are not separate from me. And when I am working, wherever I am working, whether it's in a private industry or whether I'm working for a government, or even when I'm cleaning my house or when I'm cooking or picking up trash, whatever I am doing, who is my employer? So people say, you know, my employer is State Farm, or my employer is Google, or my employer is government of US or state of California. No, my employer is Bhagwan. Ultimately, he is the ultimate employer. He's above the state of California, US government, Indian government, Microsoft, Google, everything has emerged from that. So who is my employer? Bhagwan. God is my employer, and I'm working for the totality. When we do that, then last week we had started a 4-verse project which Bhagwan Sri Krishna had given us, how 4 steps can be taken to serve me and come close to me. So we'll see how 4 steps. So 1 we had done in May before we ended, and the other 3 we will do today. So the first step, Bhagwan says, Mayyeva mana adatsva, mai buddhim niveshaya, nivasishyasi mayyeva, ata urdhvam na samshaya. So put your mind in me. Now the mind is very chanchal. Chanchala mana Krishna, Arjuna says in the 6th chapter. Mayyeva man adatsva, mai buddhim niveshaya. Then control the mind with the intellect. So control the mind with the intellect, control the intellect with the inner God's presence. So, and then place your mind and intellect in me. He said, how can I place the mind and intellect in me? It's not even under my control. My mind runs here and there. But if that happens, but if you can do it, nivasishyasi mayyeva, ata urdhvam na samshaya. There is no doubt. If you put your mind in me, love me with all your heart, understand me, remember me at all times, intellect in me, you will live with me, in me, constantly you will be with me. Hey Bhagwan, bahut mushkil hai. It's too hard. All the time to think of you and then to love you and work for you. It's very difficult. Okay, maybe work, but mind and intellect all the time. You don't know how busy I am. Morning to evening, I have so much to do. What are we doing? WhatsApp. 90% of our time is spent in WhatsApp, Facebook, internet, phone. The moment you pick up the phone, half an hour is gone. So we say we are very busy, but actually, if you look at it, how much time actually do we spend in remembering God, worshiping God and serve? We don't. Why? Because we are very extrovert. So Bhagwan said, okay, you cannot put your mind in me all the time. You cannot think about me, intellect in me. Okay, I'll give you an easier job. So now he's coming to step 2. So first step is the highest, that mind in me, intellect in me, live in me, be with me at all times. I can't do that, Bhagwan. Do you have any simpler, shortcut? Can you give me a shortcut? So Bhagwan says, okay, come close. I'll whisper in your ear. So he says, what? He says, try and keep on trying. That is the shortcut. So Bhagwan Sri Krishna will give us a shortcut where if you're not able to keep your mind on me, Bhagwan says, so verse number 9, chapter 12, verse number 9. Atha chittam samadhatum.
Atha chittam samadhatum.
Na shaknoshi mai sthiram.
Na shaknoshi mai sthiram.
Abhyasa yogena tataha.
Abhyasa yogena tataha.
Mamichhaptum dhananjaya.
Mamichaptum Dhananjaya.
All together. Atha chittam samadhatum na shaknoshi mai sthiram abhyasa yogena tataha mamichhaptum dhananjaya. Atha. Okay, then you say you cannot do number one. That is, put your mind in me, intellect in me at all times, live in me. He said, I can't do that. Okay, I'll give you the second technique, abhyasa. Abhyasa yoga. So he says, atha chittam samadhatum. Atha means in case, chittam samadhatum, the mind samadhatum, you cannot place in me at all times. Na shaknoshi. Na shaknoshi means you are not able to. Sakta, in Hindi say, main nahi kar sakta. So that comes from shaknoshi. Na shaknoshi mai sthiram. Sthiram means unmoving. So if you are not able to put your mind in me unmoving constantly, then what do? Abhyasa yogena tataha. Abhyasa yoga. Yogena is the third case. So abhyas yoga means the yoga of practice. Tataha. Then in that case, do abhyasa yoga. Practice again and again. Mam ichhaptum. And why do you do that? To get to me. O Dhananjaya. He calls Arjuna Dhananjaya because Arjuna was a great warrior, and when Yudhishthir finally came to power after, or even before that, when the Pandavas and Kauravas both had their kingdom, Arjuna and Bhim would go to battle, lead the troops in battle, and they had won a lot of territory and lot of wealth had been acquired. So he tells Arjuna that you have acquired so much outer merit. Now it's time to acquire inner merit. Like each one of us, over the years we have saved, we are comfortable financially, we are our, 401k is good, and, pension plan. But we need to acquire now inner wealth, inner merit. And that is the purpose of studying Bhagavad Gita, that I should now know who I am, go inward. That is the purpose of studying. So he says, Mam ichhaptum dhananjaya, O Arjuna, now what you do the yoga of practice. Now this abhyasa, in Gurudev's commentary, he has talked about meditation, which when we are meditating or when we are doing puja or something, then our mind should be constantly on the Lord. But the mind will run. Mind will go here and there. Mind will run, and then my intellect will run, and then my thoughts will run. And suddenly, instead of thinking about God, I'm thinking about some worldly thing. And that happens to all of us. Mind runs, intellect runs, and my whole personality goes. And 20 minutes later, I say, oh, I was doing meditation. I was doing puja. What happened? Where did my mind go? So Gurudev says, bring the mind again and again back. And when he says, give your mind and intellect to me, we say, I don't have mind and it's not under my control. Agar hota to main deta na, I cannot even control my own mind and intellect. And giving does not mean that you take the mind and then go place it in Bhagwan. What it means is constant reminder. Remind your mind again and again that we have to keep it on the Lord, keep it on Bhagwan. But why does Bhagwan Sri Krishna says abhyasa, even in the 8th chapter, abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanya gamina paramam purusham divyam yati parthanu chintayan. And again in the 6th chapter, he says abhyasa yogen abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagye nacha grihyate. So why does again and again he tell abhyas? Because anything to be successful in the world, you need practice. Like when we first, when you first start cooking, right away the dish comes out good. No, we burn it a few times, and sometimes too much salt, sometimes no salt, all those things. And slowly with practice, then the dishes come out good. When we learn parking, to do parallel parking in the beginning, how hard it is. Nowadays, of course, we have the rear camera. But even then, to park 1, 2, 3 is hard. And then when you come out, you say, oh, my car is 2 feet away from the curb, and then I have to go back in. Or when you see these ballerinas, these ballets, how they stand on their toes and to twirl round and round, and they jump. There was this Nureyev, he was the most famous ballet dancer. And when he jumped, it looked like he was standing in the air. And then slowly he would come down. So, wow, he does such a great job. Or she, this ballerina is so good. Or this Bharatnatyam or Kathakali. But you ask a ballerina how many hours they have practiced. First of all, they start from age 5 or 6. Their mother will take them. Okay, you go to ballet class. Then 10 years of constant study, constant practice, and hours of practice. And then later on, if they become 15 or 20, they become professionals. You think they can stop? No. Even a professional ballerina has to practice 6 to 8 hours a day, even after she's already a professional at the top of her. So anything to be successful in the world, you have to practice. Anything. Whatever we have achieved is because of repeated practice. So here also, repeated practice. My mind is going into the world, bring it back. There's a beautiful story in Mahabharata where the Pandavas were in the forest. And so one place they had stopped, and I guess somebody gave them food, or they collected some food, and they had this small lamp, and Draupadi had cooked, and they were all sitting to eat, 5 of them plus Draupadi. And they had a small lamp, and suddenly the lamp went out. And so they said, oh, the lamp went out, we can't see anything. And so they were looking for where the lamp is, and the oil, and the matches and match, all that stuff they found. They lit the lamp again. It took them 2-3 minutes, and they found Bhima had already finished his plate. He said, Bhima, how did you finish your plate so fast? Arjuna asks Bhima. It was so dark, you couldn't even see the plate, couldn't see the food. He said, with practice. He says, because Bhima loved to eat. So I don't need daylight or night. I can eat anytime, So Arjuna says, if he can eat in day and night, why can't I shoot in day and night? Why do I need daylight to shoot? So after that, every night daytime he would practice shooting, and nighttime again he would practice shooting. At night, even in pitch dark, he would try to remember where is the tree, where is the branch, or he would put some target. And even when he couldn't see, but because he had seen it in the daytime, he would shoot and exactly hit the center of the target. Or he would create some sound, like he would make, if there's a wind blowing, and then he would think, okay, there are so the point is that with practice, he could shoot as well in the dark as he could shoot in the daylight. So with practice, we can achieve anything. So Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, Abhyas yogena tata mam ichhaptum dhananjaya. With repeated practice. But repeated practice does not mean you keep doing the same thing. Guruji Swami Tejomayanandaji very beautifully, he says, if you keep doing the same thing you have been doing, you will get the same result you have been getting. So we have to get better. Like say our child is taking SAT, and out of 2,400, say she gets 1,500, so, but she says, Mom, I want to take it again. You say, okay, take it again. But the idea is not that to get again another 1,500. That's not. The purpose is that second time she takes, she should get 1,800. And maybe third time she takes, get 2,100 or 2,200. So we have to take extra lessons, maybe give her some extra coaching, some extra material, extra efforts. So the point is that you cannot be stuck on 1,500. Otherwise, there's no point of repeating. So when I am doing repeated practice, the idea is that I should improve. With this, I should come closer to God. My mind should become more quiet. My mind should become still. People go to these workshops, weekend, enlightenment in one weekend. People take years and years. Buddha, who was already so evolved and had so much vairagya, It is said that 7 years, day and night, that's all he was doing. He hardly slept, he hardly ate. 24 hours a day, his mind was in meditation. And what we say, 1 hour I have been meditating for 6 months. कुछ नहीं हुआ अभी तक. अरे ऐसे नहीं होगा. We have to make this our primary goal, our primary purpose. Because these great Mahatmas, even though they were highly evolved, it took them years. Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda, how many years he stayed with his guru. So the point is that effort is required and one should be patient. The example I heard is a very good example of a searchlight. Like if there is a corridor or like a compound which is being guarded by a searchlight. So the light is focused on the fence, so nobody should come in. But there is a guard standing, but then he suddenly hears a sound inside. So he moves the searchlight. Okay, check the building. Is anybody come from the other side? So he's able to move the searchlight from the fence to the building, from the building to the corridor, to the lawn, and from there back to the fence. So similarly, our mind is like a searchlight, always focused on the world and my things and my possessions and my family and my this and my that and my stock market. All the time, the mind is focused outward. It's a searchlight, but it is unfortunately focused everywhere except Bhagwan. So Bhagwan says, move your searchlight towards me. Shift your attention onto me. Just as the guard can effortlessly switch the searchlight, so you and I should switch our attention, at least give some time. Last in May, we had talked about that. I have 12 things to do per day. Okay, do that. But out of 12, put the 13th thing as remembering God, praying to God, meditating. 20 minutes. So out of 12, 13th thing is Bhagwan. Okay, I say, I'm fine with that. Slowly, what you will see is that 13th thing will become more and more important and other things will become less. Not that I won't do my things, but I'll do them as service of God. So that is the message that the Bhagavad Gita teaches. So talking about Gita, I heard about this man and they said he has been listening to Gita for 20 years and following Gita's advice for 20 years. And I bowed down. I said, wow, this man has been listening to Gita for 20 years and following Gita's advice for 20 years. They said, yeah. And then later on, I found out his wife's name is Gita. So he had been listening to her. And so ladies are saying, what's wrong with that? Aisa aadmi aur chahiye. So the point is that the idea of listening to Gita is follow her advice, bring it into our life. So that is the essence of this particular shloka number 9, where Bhagavan says that if you are not able to put your mind in me, then do the yoga of practice. Abhyas yogena tata mam ichhaptum dhananjaya. And what is the purpose of doing practice? What is the purpose of doing yoga? You want to reach me. Oh, Arjuna, that is the whole purpose. So he's giving us an easier method. If your mind is not able to stay in God, do practice. Bhagavan, he says, no, maybe I can't do. I can't do this. I cannot do meditation. I cannot do abhyas. Do you have an easier method? Method number 3. So now Bhagavan is giving us method number 3. He says, why? I love to work. I work. I'm a karma yogi. People think karma yogi means one who works 14 hours a day is a karma yogi. Guruji Swami Tejomayananda ji says, karma yogi does not mean, say, hum to karma yogi hain, hum to puja nahi karte. I work 14 hours a day. But 14 hours a day, what do you do? That makes it karma yoga. Even a smuggler works 14 hours a day because he's trying to smuggle, or a person who wants to rob a bank, or a person who wants to cheat in his taxes, he works 14, 16 hours. Is that karma yogi? No. Karma yoga is how you dedicate your activities to God. So what is karma and what is karma yoga and how to dedicate to God? Bhagavan is telling that this is step number 3. If you're not able to put your mind, you're not able to practice, and you want to do karma, so step number 3. That is verse number 10. Abhyasepya samarthosi
Vyasepya samarthosi
matkarma paramo bhava
matkarma paramo bhava
madarthamapi karmani
madarthamapi karmani
kurvan siddhim avapsyasi.
kurvan siddhim avapyasi.
So he says, okay, all together, please mute and all chant together. Abhyasepya samarthosi matkarma paramo bhava madarthamapi karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. Abhyase api. He said, I cannot do abhyas. I cannot put my mind in you. I cannot do practice. I cannot meditate. I cannot do puja. I love to work. That's all I can do. So abhyase api, even abhyas, asamartha. Samartha means capable. Asamartha means incapable. So you are incapable of doing meditation, incapable of doing practice, incapable of keeping your mind and intellect. Asi means you are incapable of doing any of these, the first 2 steps. Okay. Then what do you do? Mat karma parama bhava. Bhava means become what? Mat karma parama. Make my work, mat karma parama. Make it your supreme goal. Also, parama also means make me your supreme goal. So while working, make me your supreme goal. Mat karma paramo bhava. Make my actions for me as your supreme goal. Why should I do that? You know, people say best thing is to meditate, you know, go in the forest and meditate, and you are telling me to go out and work. That's what Arjuna wanted to do. Remember, Arjuna said, I want to go to the forest and meditate. And Bhagavan tells him, no, your duty is to serve. Your duty is to work. So here, which he had told in the 3rd chapter, the entire chapter of Karma Yoga, here he summarizes, Mat karma paramo bhava, make my work the supreme. Madartham api karmani. Madartham means for me, making me your goal. Karmani kurvan, doing siddhim avapsyasi. You will reach the highest goal that all these meditators reach. He said, how can I reach the highest goal of meditation when I'm doing work? So we'll talk about that. So as it is said, people who are extrovert, who are unable to sit and meditate, Bhagavad Gita is very thorough. It gives instructions to everybody. And next verse, it will see even for the further one who is not even able to work dedicated to God, what he will do, that we'll see next week. So Bhagavad Gita says we have answers for everybody. It's not that thou shalt do this or thou shalt go to hell. There is nothing like that. Bhagavan says, if you can't do this, do this. If you can't do this, do the 3rd one. You can't do the 3rd one, do the 4th one. So he's constantly giving us options so that we can pick where we are. So how can I dedicate all activities to me? We have talked about how a mother constantly remembers God, but Gurudev in his commentary talks about father. You know, at different times he talks. So here he says, just as father, mother, of course, carries the baby for 9 months. So she is already very close to the child. But for the father, the child is a stranger, because soon as the father sees the child, you know, he's not that closely connected as the mother is. But then when he goes to work, after he has played with the child for a while, and slowly he gets to know the child, and then what happens, even at work, he's thinking of the child. You know, my baby must not now be sleeping, or maybe, you know, he is being fed or she is being fed. And then slowly he will dedicate, he will say, I was going to buy some new clothes this week. I won't do that. I'll save the money and put it in my child's college fund. Or I wanted to buy a new car. Chalega, I'll run it for another couple of years. I'll get it fixed. And why do I need a new car? And whatever the $10,000 I save, I put it in the 5 to 9, my child's education fund. So slowly, this idea that I have a child or one or two children, and for my children, I am working. Then it becomes automatic. Then he doesn't have to remind himself, I have a child whose name is Suresh or a girl whose name is Sita. No, constantly his mind is there. Of course, mother, it is easier, but even a father with slowly, he or she becomes remembering the child, working for the child. And then we have talked about a diplomat, like an ambassador who is, in a foreign country. And if they ask him, can you do, he says, we can do it. Now, when he says we can do it, he said, we can give you $10 million in aid. Now, we means he might have, in his bank account, $100,000 or $50,000, but he said, we can give you 10 million. He doesn't mean I myself. We means the United States can give you 10 million in aid, or we can, send our army to defend you. So why? Because he has become one with the United States, or if he's an ambassador of India, he thinks of me as an ambassador. So same way they say, make yourself an ambassador of God and constantly work. Just as this person, when he says we, he can deliver millions. Why? Because he works for the United States. So when you work for God, who is even higher than the United States, higher than United Nations, higher than all the earths, all the universes, higher than heaven, hell, everything, then automatically you get the power. And that's what they say. When you are working as his servant, he works through you. When I say I am God's servant, I am working for God, then that divine energy comes into our life. So that's what they say, that dedicate your activities and constantly remember that you are God's representative. So then what will happen? So they say that from shloka number 10, where you are doing karma, you will go to shloka number 9 with practice. And then you will go to shloka number 8, where your mind is constantly. So it's not that you stay at 10 and keep on doing actions, but slowly transfer the actions to thinking about God and keeping my mind constantly in God. So that is called perfection. It's not that you remain stuck on doing karmas, but do karmas for higher. And then eventually you progress to where it becomes spontaneous. Just as for the father, he doesn't have to think, I am working for my children. Spontaneously, all his actions come to that level. So you and I, the more we think of God, we put God in our actions, in our thoughts, we become servants of God. So they say, first of all, do Bhagavad Dharma. What is Bhagavad Dharma? In the Srimad Bhagavad, it is described very well that smaranam, chintanam, pada sevanam, so on, so on. And atma niveshanam. So he says you start listening to stories of God, start thinking about God, remembering God, sing songs for him, do kirtanam, do smaranam, do japa, and then do the upasana that we talked about, where I become a angi, I become a part of God, and then slowly atma nivedanam, then I surrender myself, I become one with God, I surrender myself to God. He says, yeah, that's okay, I surrender, but then who will take care of my family? I have to worry about my wife and my children and my bank balance and all. So Bhagavan says, we are not saying don't take care of your family, but do not make the family as my only goal in life. Me, myself, and my family, it has to extend. That's why in Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Vasudeva Kutum, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Sa Mahatma Sa Durlabha. So he says, it is hard to find a Mahatma, a great soul, who sees everything as Vasudev, everything as my Lord, everything, whoever I deal with. And how can we do that? How can I see everything as God? How can I work constantly for God? How can I constantly remember God? So they say that, think that how will my God be pleased? Will my God be pleased with this action that I'm doing at this moment? Will God be pleased with me? Just as when I'm working for a boss and I write a project report and then I take it to the boss to show him, my boss say, oh, you have done a great job. Say, oh, today you come home and say, my boss was pleased with me because I wrote a good report and now I'm going to get a promotion or I'm going to get a raise in salary. So instead of will my boss be pleased, that's good, but will God be pleased? Is Bhagwan happy with what I am doing right now and at all times? So that should be the goal. That should I work only for myself or should I work to please God? There's another beautiful story I heard. So there was this professor who was teaching in a city in South India, in a city, and it was a big college, big university, and he was a professor and he was teaching English, and then there were other teachers, science, chemistry, math, and all. And in this city, from all the surrounding villages, children used to come. Young boys and girls would come from the surrounding villages, and some from the city, obviously, from the city also. So he used to see that the people who came from the villages, some of those children, because they had never seen the life of a big city and all the distractions, all the late night movies and shows and things, all this activity, hubbub. Because in their village, there were only a few thousand people and, everybody knew what everybody was doing. Here, parents are not here. They are in the village. They are sending the money every month. So they used to get distracted. They'll start going out with their friends late at night, go to a movie, then go have dinner at, some place and eat late and then come home 2, 3 o'clock or do all those things. And then they are in the class where they are very sleepy and all. So this English professor felt that's not good. I should talk to these children. So other professors told him, what are you doing? Why are you worried about them? You are here to teach English, right? So tell them about Shakespeare. What they do after hours, you cannot control. It's wrong. You should not be interfering in their life. I'm a chemistry teacher. I just teach chemistry and I go home. I am a physics teacher. I just teach physics and then I'm gone. I'm not their father or mother. I can't be with them day and night. As long as they're in my class, if they are behaving. But I said, no, I don't feel good about that. These children need guidance. So then what he started doing, he would notice whose children's grades are not doing well or who are distracted. And he found out who are the children, even though from the village, but they are not. So then he started taking one by one. He would say, let's go for a walk. And very gently, very kindly, not scolding or not criticizing or not shouting at them, but very politely, softly, you are here to study. Your parents are working so hard. Your father is, sacrificing. He's a farmer and he's working so hard so that you may get a good education. So nicely talking to them and then slowly, making them understand what is the purpose of life. Why are you here? You are here to make yourself better, and your parents' sacrifice, you have to honor that. You can't just say, oh, it's okay, my father is, because see how hard they work. And also, what is your goal? Do you always want to be like that, or do you want to become a boss, or you want to become an engineer or doctor or lawyer or whatever, computer? So he would slowly get to know them and slowly redirect their thoughts that you're not only here to have fun. Yes, you should have fun, but what are your grades? How are you keeping up? How are you studying? What are you doing? So slowly he would shift, and one by one, and the children in the beginning, they were like, why is this guy interfering? But then when they saw that his motive was gentle and pure and honest, and he was not trying to gain anything, then the children developed an appreciation that this professor actually cares for us. Not only that, but their parents of the children, when they found out, they were so thankful, that there is somebody who actually cares for our children. And he said that those children and their parents, even after they graduated, they would go back to that college, meet that professor and thank him. The parents would come. So the point is that one is that you are just here to teach. Okay, you come, give a lecture and go back. But this was a rare example where this person went above the call of duty and did what was not even expected of him. And in fact, people discouraged him that, people will get mad, they will misunderstand. But because he had the welfare of others at heart, so they say, put others first, put others before you, see what is welfare of others. He said, how do I know what other people will like? So Buddha said it very beautifully. He said, whatever hurts you, hurts others. So if something hurts me, it will hurt others too. Like if somebody shouts at me, I don't like that, I feel bad, then I should not shout at others. If somebody puts me down and criticizes me and tells me inferior, I should not put others down, criticize them, consider them inferior. If I don't like people talking behind my back, gossiping and making stories about me, I should not gossip behind people's back and make stories. And so whatever I don't like to be done to me, I should not do to others. As they say, do unto others as you would have done unto you. So that's what Bhagavan Buddha said, that if it hurts you, it hurts others. So remember that. If you don't want it to be done to you, do not do it to others. So constantly. But our problem is that we have long-standing vasanas. They also call them samskaras. But vasanas, long-standing tendencies where I get angry all of a sudden, or I start shouting, or I get irritated, or all the such, and I can't control. When my anger comes, then I can't control I just say things I didn't want to, I do things I didn't want to, or it could be any other, vasana, any other desire. It could be anger, could be greed, could be jealousy, could be hatred, could be putting people down. And each one of us knows what are our weak points. So they say, live alertly. It's called alert living, that the moment the tendency comes, okay, I'm getting angry. Last time I got angry and I did bad things. So become alert. First of all, know that this is wrong, what I have done. And secondly, when it happens, immediately nip it in the bud. They say, start taking a few deep breaths or start chanting the name of Lord. So slowly, when that desire arises, or when I want to do something I'm not supposed to, like I'm diabetic and I find some sweet mithai or chocolate or anything, it's not good for me. So in the past, I would just take it and put it in my mouth. No, this is not good for me. So by understanding that something which is not good for me, I should not do it. And conversely, what is good for me and what is good for all, I should do it. So be very alert. Slowly, this alertness will arise where even if things are not good, I am able to move my mind away from doing the wrong action. It could be anything, it could be lying, or it could be cheating, or it could be hurting. But whatever it is I am doing, whatever my wrong habits are, my wrong tendencies are, I should slowly, as I become alert, before that, when the thought comes, then the thought can become speech, and then speech can become action. So try to control first at the action level. I don't do wrong things. Then at the speech level, I don't speak wrong things. I don't, and then ultimately even at the thought level, because Mahatma said that even thinking negative about somebody or having anger, even in the mind itself, is also wrong. So controlling at the mind also, where I see everything is Vasudev, everything is Bhagwan, everything is the Lord. So slowly what will happen is that my habits will be controlled, wrong actions, wrong speech, and wrong thoughts. So that's what Bhagwan Sri Krishna has given us 3 steps. One is keep your mind in me, intellect in me, live in me. Mayeva manadhatsva mai buddhim nivasishyasi mayeva ata urtvam na samshay. He says, if you can't do that, abhyasa yoge na tata mam ichhaptum dhananjaya. Practice, 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 practice. As we said, try, try, try till you achieve. And he said, even if you can't do practice, then while you are doing actions, you cannot meditate, you cannot sit and you're quiet in your mind. Then while you are working, do all activities for me, dedicated to me as my instrument. Nimitta matram bhava savyasachin. Bhagavan says in the 11th chapter that be my instrument, and whatever work you are doing, do it for me. Madartham api karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. Even just doing for me, slowly your mind will become quiet. So from shloka number 10, you will go to shloka number 9, to shloka number 8, and then you will, either Bhagwan, I can't even do that. You say do work for me. I can't do that. I like to have fun. Maja. I like to do what I like to do. I don't want to work for you. I want to do what I like. I will only do what I like. He said, okay, you are like that. Okay, we have shloka number 4. If you say I want to do what I want to do, he said, okay, no problem. I have another shloka. So that we'll do next week, where you say, I cannot work for God. I cannot meditate. I want to do what I like. We all of us say that. So what to do when I like to do something and I want to do it, that we'll study next week. So we have a few minutes. Anybody would like to add anything or ask any questions, comment?
The question is, all the 3 steps they have said, do abhyas, everything is difficult because mind is not in our control.
Yes.
There are so many things going on. Constantly mind is busy. So keep trying. That's all we can do.
Right. And keep reading the Bhagavad Gita. See, everybody has this Gurudev's commentary. If you don't have, please get it. Everybody. So read it every day. At least read 2 shlokas every day with the meaning.
Yeah.
And then this one also, Tony is putting on firstpower.info. We missed a few shlokas, but he's going to put them all back. So you can re-listen to them also, on firstpower.info. So listening, or even if you just Google chapter 12, if you go to YouTube, there are talks by Swami Tejomayananda Ji, Ishwarananda. There's a lot of acharyas. So by repeated listening, the mind will remain in this. So
I hope so. I hope so. Listening is there, but acting on it becomes very difficult.
Yes, yes. So that's why our Upanishads give 3 steps: Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasana. So Shravana is listening. Listening means not only listening orally, but reading scriptures, reading works of great Mahatma, going to YouTube. YouTube, instead of, other things here and there, listen to religious discourses. After having heard, then you think about it. They are saying that you should do that, but I can't do that. So the more you think about it again and again, manana, then what will happen is this knowledge, which is a knowledge of Swami Chinmayananda or Swami Vivekananda or Guruji Swami Tejomayananda, that knowledge will become my knowledge by repeated listening and thinking about it. How can it be so? How can I do that? Why can't I do that? Like we said, anger or whatever these negative things are, whenever they come, become alert and then constantly remember that this is what I have to do. So Shravana, then Manana, contemplate upon these ideas. Don't only leave them as Gurudev's ideas or some Acharya's ideas somewhere
No.
out there.
No.
They should become my ideas. I should be convinced. So every day, some amount of reading at night before we go to bed, some reading of at least 1 hour or half to 1 hour of spiritual literature. 1 hour, if you can do, is better. And then wake up in the morning and do some meditation, just some japa, take a mala and chant the name of the Lord. Don't do anything else. Maybe get up, just wash your face and then sit down. If you can meditate, meditate. If not, just do japa. Take a mala and then just do 108 names of God and do two malas, 3 malas, 5 malas. It doesn't matter which name, which form. But when you are chanting, let it not become mechanical. Not that, oh, Om Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah. Not like that. You know, when you're Om Namah Shivaya, then think of Lord Shiva's form, think of his qualities. Shri Krishna, Sharanam Mama, think of him, you know, his beautiful form, playing the flute, you know, how pretty he looked. So all those slowly, the mind will stay on God. So start with form and then see God everywhere. So with practice, manana, and then nididhyasan is bringing that into practice, what Auntie you were saying, that
Yeah.
I see it, I hear it. So if you have convinced yourself that this is the best thing for me, then it will come in the actions. So nididhyasana also means meditation. So one nididhyasana meaning is that I meditate upon these ideas, sit and contemplate, meditate and make them mine. And then second is bring it into my practice. So this will happen gradually, and it takes, as we said, a ballerina, how many years it takes her to train. So without getting impatient, you know, work without impatience. Yes, this is my goal. This is whatever remainder time I have on this earth, I will dedicate to reaching God. And we all have limited amount of time. None of us knows how long we'll be here. So whatever time I have left, these teachings of Bhagavad Gita should become my understanding, and I should bring them into my life.
Yeah, thank you.
But thank you for bringing that point. I appreciate that. Anybody else has any questions, comments?
Why he's in verse 9, he is, Krishna ji is saying that Abhyasa Yoga. What is the significance of that word yoga in this context?
Right. See, yoga, that's a very good question. Yoga is used in many places in Bhagavad Gita. Yoga samatvam uchyate. Bhagavan says yoga is equanimity. And another place he says yoga karmasu kaushalam. Efficiency in work is yoga. So yoga comes from yuj, to unite. That is the root. So yoga means with abhyas. One is that the chapters are also called like karma yoga, bhakti yoga. So jnana yoga, dhyana yoga. So what it means is that this particular practice is called yoga. This particular practice of bhakti or practice of karma or practice of dhyana, meditation, like that. Also abhyas yoga means while I am practicing, I understand that this is a method of work, number one. Number two, yoga means I'm uniting with God. So through this practice, I am yuj, I am uniting. So yoga is used in two contexts. One is it is the science of repetition.
Oh, okay.
Yoga also means science, like science of repetition, like they say, science of bhakti or the science of karma or the science of dhyana, science or, the whatever the practice of. And second is the uniting with the higher. So yoga has, in this case, two meanings. One is that start practicing every day. So make this your practice.
Right.
That is one. And second is make this dedicated to the higher. So that's what they say. Don't only leave your SAT at 1500, but go to 17, 18, 2000, like that. So I have to keep improving through this. So that's why they say from shloka number 10, you go to 9, you go to 8, like that. And then next week, 11th will be the one who can't even do any of those three. What happens to him who just works for their own selfish pleasure, nothing else.
Right. But thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next week we'll do shloka number 11. Today we did only 2 shlokas because I summarized all the 8 shlokas, so the time was taken. But next week we'll do shloka 9, 10, 11. So Satish and Varsha Ben can please do the Aarti and then the closing prayers. I think we have the Aarti somewhere. Yeah, there it is. We'll chant the Vedic Aarti and then Gurudev's Aarti and then the closing prayers.
न तत्र सूर्यो भाति न चंद्र तारकम् नेमा विद्युतो मकुतो यज्ञिः तमेव पान्तमधु भाति सर्वं तस्य भाषा सर्वमिदं विभाति। आरति श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की दिव्य रूप मूर्ति करुणा की। आरती सद्गुरु की चरणों में उनके शांति समाये शरणागत की भ्रांति मिटाए पाप ताप संताप हरण की। आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की। आरती सद्गुरु की। वेद उपनिषद गीता को गाया धर्म सनातन किर से जगाया शुद्ध नीति प्रीति शंकर की। आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की। आरती सद्गुरु की। सिद्ध बाड़ी की तपोभूमि में नित्य विराजे गुरु हमारे भक्त हृदय आनंद स्रोत की। आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की। आरती सद्गुरु की। आरती सद्गुरु की। बोलिए श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय।
बोलिए श्री
परमात्मने नमः।
बोलिए श्री कृष्ण चंद्र भगवान
की जय। देखते आरती एवरीबॉडी। कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। ओम सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ओम असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मा मृतं गमय। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम।
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hari Om. Thank you. We'll see you next week. Hari Om.